Today we're going to talk about the judge in Trump's election theft case outsmarting him in the courtroom, and I interview former Obama spokesman and host of Pod Save America, Tommy Vitor, about whether Trump will be able to not attack the people prosecuting him, how Biden should handle the issue of Trump's indictments, and whether it's worth it for Democrats to focus on states like Ohio and North Carolina in 2024. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. So it looks like the judge in the trial overseeing Trump's election theft efforts, Judge Chutkan, figured out a way to outsmart him. We are 2 weeks away from that judge deciding on a trial date. Now, the DOJ has already requested a date of January 2nd, 2024, which is really soon. It would make this the first criminal trial for Trump before the classified documents trial in Florida and the Manhattan DA trial in, of course, New York. Meanwhile, the Trump team has floated this idea that the trial shouldn't even happen for years still. Now, Trump's goal here is to delay this thing as long as humanly possible, all the while trying this case in the court of public opinion. He knows that he will lose this case on the merits, but he's got two outs here. The first is that he wants to poison the well of potential jurors by repeating day in and day out that the election was stolen and that this prosecution of him is political and that he's a victim. Like, if he can reach one potential juror, that's all he'll need for a hung jury. These convictions have to be unanimous, so he needs to plant the seed in the head of one person who ends up on that jury that he's the victim and he'll have succeeded. And second, his ultimate goal here, of course, is to win the presidency in 2024, in part by framing Joe Biden as some corrupt tin pot dictator who jails his political opponents. Now, of course, we know that's not true and that Donald Trump is being prosecuted by a special counsel for crimes that he committed while the whole world watched him commit them, but that isn't going to stop Trump from claiming what he wants to claim. And if he can manage to win the presidency, then of course he installs a lackey at the DOJ who will then withdraw the DOJ from their own prosecution of Trump. So as far as Trump is concerned, he has every incentive in the world to keep spewing this stuff into the void because it is all in service of his plans to absolve himself, meaning that Trump needs this trial to be delayed. So what Judge Chutkan said was, quote, "I intend to ensure the orderly administration of justice in this case as I would with any other case. Even arguably ambiguous statements from parties or their counsel can threaten the process. In addition, the more a party makes inflammatory statements about this case, which could taint the jury pool, the greater the urgency will be that we proceed the trial quickly. I will take whatever measures are necessary to safeguard the integrity of these proceedings." Meaning that the onus is now on Donald Trump, not the judge, not any Democrat, but Trump, to not obstruct and retaliate and threaten, or else the trial will happen sooner. And a sooner trial means a sooner conviction, and I don't know, maybe being a convicted felon or literally sentenced to prison isn't the electoral boon that it's cracked up to be. So now we find out if Donald Trump will be able to not do something like this.
Despite the demented prosecution of our movement by our corrupt and highly partisan Department of Injustice and deranged Jack Smith. Doesn't he look deranged? You see the picture with the purple robe? He's a deranged human being. We're getting stronger by the day. Somebody said, you should treat him nicer. Maybe he'd be nice. Let me tell you, this guy is a lost soul, bad guy. Don't get nicer. He's a deranged, sick person.
And of course, underscoring all of this is the reality that he won't be able to control himself. Judge Chutkan knows that he won't be able to control himself. Trump's own lawyers certainly know that he won't be able to control himself. Even Trump's allies on Fox know he won't be able to control himself. Here's Jesse Waters very plainly admitting as much.
My point is,
well, if he does get the gag order, I'm sure he'll violate it immediately. He will, and he'll dare the judge to do something about it.
So if and when Donald Trump continues to make quote-unquote inflammatory statements about this case, in Judge Chutkan's words, then he'll have himself to blame when she sides with the DOJ and schedules a trial for January. And I assume that being sentenced to prison in February or March of an election year probably isn't the rocket fuel that Trump is looking for in his campaign, even one where the whole thing is predicated on victimhood. So now we wait and see if this 77-year-old grown-ass man can manage to exhibit enough self-control to keep himself out of court long enough to get through this election. But based on what we all know, I'd keep early 2024 clear to watch Trump stand trial for his efforts to steal the 2020 election. Here's a preview of my interview with Tommy Vitor. Just recently, Judge Chutkan, who's overseeing the election theft case, the federal case, she's considering Trump's trial date now. So she told his team that the date would be impacted based on whether there's any more retaliatory claims or threats coming from anybody in the case, meaning that basically she's putting the ball in Trump's court. If he attacks a witness, then he gets an earlier trial date, and that's the last thing he wants, but it'll be his fault. Do you think that he'll be able to control himself?
Does it feel like a parent being like, look, if you're really nice to your sister, you can stay up and watch the end of the basketball game, but, you know, only if you're good. No, I don't expect him to exert any self-control. I do love her throwing it back in his court and saying, listen, sir, all you have to do here is not retaliate and attack, potential witnesses in this case, and you can get what you want, but I don't think he'll be able to do it.
I'm sure that you've seen his team's defenses in the media now, that this is an attack on his free speech rights, that this is all election interference, on and on. And I know all of this is kind of martyrdom for the base, and that's what they want. They want to feel like victims, and that's what Trump does best. But how do you think all of this stuff is landing with the independents who will actually decide the outcome of this election?
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think it's fair to say there are novel free speech issues when it comes to indicting a former president of the United States who is running again, and scoping what he is able to say creates some challenges. But the idea that creating a fake slate of electors is somehow free speech as opposed to a sweeping 7-state conspiracy to steal an election, I would quibble with that a little bit. I think that his base, there are people who have said on the record and will say again that every time he gets indicted, they like him even more. I think more broadly, what's likely to happen is these cases will continue to be in the news. They will blot out all other narratives about Trump and all other stories and all of his primary opponents. And I don't think swing voters are going to like hearing about January 6th again. I don't think they're going to like the idea of a president of the United States who could go to jail. So I just can't imagine this helps him with swing voters.
Even with that said, if he was trying to get this out of the ether, he might be trying to talk about something different. But even when he has the opportunity to speak for himself, when he has the microphone, he does the exact same thing. It's just all complaining about Jack Smith and Fani Willis and Judge Chutkan and just everybody involved in these prosecutions. So even when he has the opportunity to control the narrative, he delves into the same exact stuff that ultimately isn't going to help him in the end.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, look, there's some parts of Trump's appeal that I can understand. If you watch a Trump rally as compared to an Asa Hutchinson rally, you're probably going to see people having more fun at the Trump rally. They feel like they're part of a team, you know what I mean? Like he's making them laugh. But one thing I can't understand about his appeal is the guy just bitches and moans all day long. It's all grievance. It's all about whining about his treatment. I don't get how voters don't get sick of that. I don't get how his base is still okay with hearing him whine about stuff all day long. How
do you reconcile those things? Because on one hand, you have this party that beats its chest for being alphas, right? That's the whole thing. It's where men know how to be men and all that bullshit. But at the same time, the entire strategy is predicated completely on just being professional victims and perpetual victims.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of his voters think, you know what, he hates the people I hate. You know what I mean? The people who I feel like look down on me, the elites, the liberals, the people in big cities, he wants to punish them as much as I want to punish them. And so they go along for the ride because, for a shared hatred of people like me, frankly.
To check out the full interview with Tommy, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also follow the link on the screen to listen to the audio version of this episode. And finally, to see more of my content, you can click the subscribe button on the screen for more.